So in this video, we're going to learn about a few more HTML elements that are pretty common. So we've seen how to write comments, we've seen head and body, doc type, and HTML, as well as H1. Now we're going to learn about a bunch more things that can go in the body. So in the slides, there's a little cheat sheet here of some of the things that we're going to cover. So we'll be referring back to this in a little bit. But before then, I want to show you the Mdn Element Reference. So this link is in the description, it's also in the slides. You could also just get there by Googling Mdn Element Reference. And it's basically a web page that lists all the elements in HTML. So some people are surprised at how many there are. Other people, other students that I've had are surprised at how few there are. There's around, and this is just a guess, I haven't counted, but around 100 or so. This page has all of them. You can read about every single one. So, we could search for body, and we could read about body, which we've already done. What I want to show you though is that there are a ton here. There are probably 10 to 15 that you'll use all the time. I'd say I've used about half of these in the last few months. None of these really. What I'm trying to say is there's a lot of things here. Don't feel like you need to know all of this. This is one of those times where I'm going to tell you it's not about memorization. Let's go back to our H1 and let's do a little bit of reading about H1s. So I'm just going to search on here for H1, click on the corresponding link, and basically an H1 down to an H6 are the 6 levels of document headings. So an H1 is going to be the most important heading on your page. It's the largest heading, down to an H6, which is still a heading, but it's the least important heading. So you can see there's an example here. H1, H2, H3, all the way down to H6. This is the resulting HTML. So here's another example here, where we've got some H1s and some other tags, and we end up with this, a heading element. We'll go ahead and make a few more H1s. A few more heading elements. So we'll do an H2. We won't do all of them. And we'll do one more. And let's change this to be an H3. Let's do actually an H6 so you can see how small they get. And let's save that. Go ahead and open up our page again. And you can see that we have a large heading, a slightly smaller heading, and this absolute smallest heading that we can go. So one other thing about H1s and other headings is that they are something called block level elements. So what that means is each one gets its own line. So even if I put them all in the same line and I refresh the page, every one of them gets a separate line and pushes everything after it to a new line. So this is important. This will come up because there are going to be other elements that do not behave this way, and those are called inline elements. Okay, so I'm going to undo that, make sure we have this spaced correctly. Let's go ahead and add some text here. So I'm going to, let's say that this is just a little bio, so I'm going to put some text here. This is some text, blah, blah, blah. And this I just want to be regular text. I don't want it to be big or highlighted or anything. So I could just write text like this. I'm just going to add a bunch more here. And I refresh my page and I get this giant thing of text on one line. But let's say that I realize I actually want a line break right here. These are 2 paragraphs of nonsense. To do that, I can use the paragraph tag. So if we went back here and we search for the P tag, you'll see that the P tag is just used to represent a paragraph of text, and paragraphs are block level elements. So that means that they also go on their own line. So let's add a paragraph in here. So I want to split here and here. Here. So I just wrap this in a paragraph tag, like so. And then I'll add another paragraph tag in front of this. And afterwards, there we go. Make sure we save that. And we refresh. And now we have 2 paragraphs that are on separate lines. So let me go and get some text. Let's just do lorem ipsum go to a generator, and let's just pull a bunch of text here and copy this over. So you can see when we have something longer like that, it's actually a paragraph. So it's not just one line, but it's a paragraph and it has spacing after it before the next paragraph. So now that I have my paragraph here, let's suppose that I wanted to make some text stand out. I want to italicize the title of a book, or I want to bold a keyword, for instance. So there are ways of doing that with HTML. I'll show you one here. Let's say I want to make simply dummy text bolded. So to do that, I could write a B tag around it. And as I mentioned earlier, this is actually not the best way of doing this anymore, but I'm going to show it to you here briefly just so you can see it. So I refresh the page and you can see simply dummy text is bolded. And more importantly, or equally importantly, it doesn't take up a new line. It's still in line. So there is something called a block level element, which we talked about. These take up their own block level. This paragraph does. This takes up its own block. And there are inline elements that just slip in and won't actually force something down to a new line. So if we go back, I did say it's not really the best way of doing it anymore. We're going to talk about that in a future video about semantic markup. Basically in HTML5, your HTML now needs to be meaningful. So by simply saying something is bold, it doesn't really say anything about the text. So rather, there are a few options. The most common one is to use strong. And so strong has a little bit more meaning. It will do exactly the same thing. You will not notice a difference here. But the idea is that by saying this is strong rather than bold, that means something a little bit more. So you'll see in the future video really what this semantic markup is all about, what HTML5 is trying to do. But for now, just know those are two ways of making something bold. Likewise, there are a few ways of italicizing some text. So if I want to italicize lorem ipsum, I could do the I tag. You can see I have italicized lorem ipsum there. But the better way of doing it is using the em tag, which is for emphasis. And it looks exactly the same. And the idea again is that emphasis means something more rather than just saying I. So we want to separate, and this is what HTML5 did, we want to separate our styling from our structure. So by saying something should be italicized or bolded, that's actually the styling of it. But by saying something is stronger or something is emphasized, that's not how it's styled or how it looks. That is more about the structure of it and what it means. So in summary, we've got H1 through H6. These are block level elements. We've got paragraphs, which are also block level. They take up their own line. And then we've got strong and em, or emphasis. And these are inline elements that let us bold or italicize things. But really what they let us do is call something out for being strong or being emphasized. And our browser just decides to make it italicized or make it bolded.